sends it pretty much overseas, and then pay like $1 an
He'd
hour.
be doing anything to save a buck.
100%.
100%.
$1 an hour or something. These guys are, bro. And they whip it back to you, but you got to full give them the rundown of what you want and how you like it.
Yeah.
It takes a few goes.
That's what I mean. As long as you've got it organised
to get it where it wants to be, but they get you there eventually. What'd you get me? Surprise.
Yeah. Have you had a sip yet?
Not yet.
Have a sip. Let me know what you think of the coffee.
Yeah, it's good. What's that? Just a normal cup?
That's just a latte with a little dash of honey in there, mate.
That's what I get. That's what I normally get.
132, our sponsors. So, yeah, good
There
coffee.
Good coffee.
Shout out 132. Thanks for looking after the boys. Yeah, that's it.
Good guess there. I was thinking when you passed it to me, I'm like, oh, it's not for me. Surely.
So you do a little dash of honey too?
I do a little dash of honey, yeah. I'm really new on it. My partner gets it a lot, and I was like, you know what?
That's a nice touch.
Bad.
It's
yeah,
a nice
bit of a sprinkle in there.
Exactly, mate. But, bro, thanks for coming in.
Pleasure to be here again.
Been a couple of years since we had you on, but a lot's happened in life since that time.
Absolutely. Been very busy.
100%. Well, you've got your third crew now?
Third location. Just opened in Craigieburn, which has been great. We had a huge success out in the north side. We're obviously being from the west, our whole life, it was a bit of a stab to open up in the north. But the north, there's not a lot out there like what we do. So when we kind of started out there, we hit the ground running straight away. It's been an awesome 2 weeks so far. Things have kind of really turned over. And it's just about making sure that we don't do anything special. We do the basics right.
Yep.
And that's what I feel like. If we keep doing the basics right over and over, time and time again, we'll do well.
For sure, 100%. Mate, you guys have grown really quickly. It's been impressive, and I've enjoyed watching it.
I came to you many years ago. Do you remember when we had the meeting at the other place? And I said, Jack, bro, tell me what's going on.
I appreciate how you said the other place there too.
Yeah.
We don't want to give them any free exposure now that we're gone. But yeah, man, we had some early beginnings back there. I still remember seeing the other day that post we put up when we hit some weights together, and the caption was, future Australian champion boxer, run us through that, man, because you got pretty close there with the Olympics, didn't you?
Yeah, so it was a very bitter pill to swallow.
Fucking earth, I can imagine.
Obviously, I've been training for the Olympic Games since as long as I can remember. 12 to 13 years old is when I had my first fight, but it was a lifelong dream to go to the Olympics. And I was in Russia, so 2019 was in the World Championships in Russia. I came home, so I was fresh off the block. I was hot. Endurance was good, body was good, everything else was great. And then I came home and won the Australian titles again for the 2020 Olympic Games. So when you qualify for the Olympic Games, you need 2 selection periods. So there's, if you don't make the first one, you get a second chance. Mm-hmm. So we, as the Australian team, we packed up, we went to India for 4 weeks. And then from India, we're supposed to fly to Wuhan, China, which was... that was
right before COVID.
Right before. So we'd heard that it was a fish virus. That's what they had told us. We got wind that there was a virus around. They said it was a fish virus prior to...
Before it became a bat virus?
Yeah, correct. So then we were in India for 4 weeks. Our last few days, we were getting ready to fly to Wuhan, but the World Health Organization had actually scrapped the whole event and said it's not safe for anyone to come over here. So we flew from India back to Melbourne, and we had a bit of a bluffer period because we didn't know what was going on with the first selection event.
Was that hard to deal with mentally?
It was, but we didn't know anything better because it wasn't COVID back then. So we didn't know. It was like, okay, let's just go back.
Of course, but more just the delay to what you're expecting.
Because as an athlete, it was like you peak,
and
then it was like you're feeling really good, and then it's like, okay, you got to have a bit of a lull period now, because otherwise you stay up too high, you just kind of crash and burn. So we flew back. We got told to have a week kind of deload, and then we had got back to the AIS for about 10 days, and then we flew from Melbourne to Thailand. Spent 4 weeks in Siberia, I think it was called. Beautiful out there. It was like the country of Thailand. It was wasn't like the hustle and bustle. Yep. From there we went to Jordan. And then we had flew over there, and COVID was around now.
Yep.
But everything was like, they had their restrictions in place. Like, it was a bit like, whoa, what's going on kind of thing. Being obviously in a foreign country, all these rules are in place now. So we fought over there. I had 2 fights over there. I fought the Iraq boy, beat the Iraq boy nice and comfortably, and then I had one more fight. This fight would have guaranteed me my spot, and then I fought the hometown Jordan boy in Jordan. So there was a big stadium.
That's going to be a tough ask.
Massive ask. He was a tough fella. He did beat me. We beat me on a split decision. Good fight for me though, because he was a very tough opponent. I learned a lot from that fight. But I knew he ended up qualifying for the games. I knew that was the standard, and I knew that I had what it took to get there. Unfortunately, obviously, I wasn't able to compete. Once you lost, you were out. So I had one more fight to win, and I just lost it. So we had a bit of a period to cool down a little bit. So we flew home, and then once you flew home, we went back to I was back at base, which is Melbourne. Flew back to the AIS, and the AIS were then sending us for our second qualification event. So all the 5 continents, if you didn't qualify in the first one, so all the other countries obviously have theirs. If you didn't qualify in that first one, you then have a World Games. In that World Games, if you didn't qualify in your first continent, yeah, you come to this one. So this one was like for everyone that had fallen short in the first qualifier. Got to Melbourne, and then we were all ready to go. Was ready to start peaking again, and then the whole it was in Paris in France, and the whole competition got called off. So unfortunately, they just said if you didn't make it in the first qualification event, you didn't get a shot to go. So it wasn't as if I got beaten. It wasn't as if I wasn't good enough to go. It was purely the fact that the circumstances were that COVID was a thing, and I lost sleep over it because it was so hard, because I was like, I knew 100% I was going to go. I didn't have plan B. My plan A was what was going to work. I was so confident in it. And then I remember it so clearly. It was a Monday morning. I just finished my run. I got home, and then the national coach, he scheduled a call with me, and I'm like, oh, it doesn't look good. Like, COVID was like gonna peak at this time. Jumped on a phone call with him, and it was just like blunt as it was like, the whole events, you're not allowed into France, like the whole event's been thing. And I was like, oh, surely they're going to reschedule it, they're going to push it somewhere else. And he's like, where are they going to put it? Everywhere. The whole world everywhere is locking down. Jumped off the phone, and I just had this feeling it was like a hole in my stomach. I'm like, that's it. Like 10 years of training gone. Like, not gone, but like the pinnacle of sport.
The goal of what you're focusing on, yeah.
Yeah, and it was like, it was so hard, because I'm like, all my eggs were in this basket, and it was like, what do I do? But the reality is you had to have all your eggs in that basket for the chance of that to come true. Absolutely. And if I didn't, then I wouldn't have been all in. I was all in. I had taken time off work. Like, I've been traveling for months, because it was like in preparation for this one event.
Was Crew opening up its first gym around this time too?
Yeah, so Crew was actually already open. So we opened in 2019 in Braybrook, myself and Damon. And then obviously I was in, so funny story enough, backtracking a little bit, the day we opened on a Saturday, on Monday morning I flew to Russia. So I kind of I left the big fella there to run the show on his own. But that was and you know what? I'm very grateful that he understood my dream. Me and Damon have been best mates for a long time. He understood the dream. So it wasn't like, hey bro, I got to go. Like, he was like, it sucks, but I understand, and I support you no matter what. And that's what makes a good team. He was very able to understand, obviously, the position I was in. Yeah. We had a massive open day. The open day was huge. There was hundreds of people there, and then I said Monday, I'm like, I got to go. So I left for 3 weeks, come back, and obviously he'd run ship tight, which was great. But then, like we were kind of open, and then while I was in India, so that was the first selection camp, we had heard periods of the gym locking down and whatnot, and it was spoken about, but it wasn't action just yet. Got home, went to Jordan.
Because it was probably similar time around me opening up here.
Yes, correct. So I was in Jordan, had the competition. When I got home, everything shut. So it was like my dream was like,
and then you just put your whole life into this gym.
Everything, all the money I had, everything.
I know that feeling.
And then it was like, the dream was still alive, because at that point, it was 50% that I was going to Paris, France. So once I had got back home to base, it was like, okay, it sucks, but I've still got another chance. But then the gym got shut, and then everything just started, all these restrictions in Melbourne just started coming on. And it was, as you know, anyone in the fitness, in any industry, but the fitness industry copped it hard. We copped it really hard. We were the first to shut, the last to open. And then, obviously had one more chance. And then once I got that phone call, it was like, man, what now?
And how long did it take you to, or even have you found peace with that yet? Or is it still something that's going to chew you up? It
still sits here a little bit. And like, you get the odd question of like, oh, why did you go to the Olympics? Or, I thought your whole dream, it's hard. No one really understands. My circle does, but like when you explain it to someone's like, oh, don't worry about it. It's just the Olympic Games. It's like, nah. It's everything I've ever dreamed of as a kid.
It's a weird statement. It's just the Olympic Games.
Yeah, but it was that's
a massive thing.
Yeah, it was so big for me. It was a really hard pill to swallow, and like even talking about it now, it still like fires me up a little bit, Because if things were different, like I think to myself, like, what if COVID wasn't here? Would I be an Olympian? Like, what if things didn't happen the way that it did, and these restrictions didn't fall in place? What if France wasn't so bad and we were able to get there?
What if's a dark hole though?
That's exactly right. Exactly right.
And then you don't.
That's correct. So, it's something that I've learned to be better with these days, and I have to. But I use it as fuel now. Yep. Otherwise, if I don't use it as fuel, it kind of buries me a little bit.
You up a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
I had a question on that. Fit a blank.
Get some 132 coffee in ya.
Spark me up a little bit more. Was there a part of that? Because obviously the Olympic Games is probably more about the honour, the glory.
Yeah.
But was there elements of your career path and decisions that had been made around that obviously delayed you turning pro, meaning that when you're doing amateur boxing, you're not making an income from it as well?
Correct.
So was that a secondary level of or secondary pill for you to have to swallow? It's like, fuck, I've put all this off, these opportunities to fight pro, make money,
absolutely,
build my career in that space for the dream of the Olympic Games, and then that to be all taken
absolutely.
away from me.
I had back in 2016 for Rio, I'd just fallen short at the Nationals, and I was like, what was I back then? I was 24, 23, so I'm like, I've got to give, even younger, back then it was 20, 22 I was, and I'm like, I'm going to give it another 4 years. It's a 4-year cycle. It's a long time to wait for a dream that no one else can see but you, so that was, for me, it was like, I'll stick around in 2020, then after 2020, I want to turn professional, because back then you weren't allowed to, you're either pro or amateur, but these days there's actually a rule where you're allowed to have you're allowed to have X amount of fights and then try out for the Olympic Games. But it's a long cycle, that 4-year period. And it's like, if
Usain Bolt said it best. That how many hours he trained for how many years, 9 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely. But it was, I would have loved to turn professional a little bit earlier in my career. I've got a style that really sells and people want to watch, and people know that when I fight, I love putting on a good show, and I can really
you're a high volume fighter. You like being inside.
I like banging a little bit, I like landing some hard shots. But yeah, it was a massive decision for me to say, okay, you know what? Because in the amateurs I made nothing. You made sponsorships that would help the dream and the journey, which was fine, but there was no steady income. I still worked full-time hours, but now obviously I've made the transition into professional ranks. But it's been a slow process. I've had 2 injuries so far, but things are coming good now, so should be back in the ring early next month.
How was the transition stylistically going from amateur to pro? Obviously, probably longer rounds, more rounds in the fight. Again, pace wise,
more volume in terms of duration of fight. I've always been known for a good engine. Good engine, hit hard, get in, get out kind of thing. Whereas in the professionals, you can't keep that volume up for 10 to 12 rounds. You get
That's
tired,
what I mean. It naturally is a slower pace.
So naturally, I had to. The key focus was to slow down, sit on my punches a little bit more.
Bit more methodical.
Yep.
Bit more tactical. Bit of a chess match.
Bigger correct. Land big shots. Keep going on the body, and then land to the head, or whatever it was. There's more tactics in there as opposed to point scoring.
To just putting on pressure.
You're trying to slow this person down. You're trying to really take everything they've got to finish them, kind of thing. Whereas in the amateurs, if the stoppage comes, it comes. Very rarely it does, but it was like when you're fighting at high level, because it was like a chess match as well, but it's like fencing for 3 rounds. Like you're going flat knacker.
Yeah. It's almost like a fitness test.
For 9 minutes. It's just, who wins, So it's been good though. I like sitting down on my punches a little bit more. I'm only a little bit smaller for my division, so I like feeling that a little bit stronger, sit on my heels a little bit more, dig my shots in. It's been a good process lately. Like I've enjoyed the longer rounds. I feel like, because I've always been good at reading my opponents, but once you get in that 4th and that 5th round, you're really starting, you're picking up patterns. You're picking up patterns, what they do, what you do, what shots work, what shots don't work, so you can really read it accordingly.
Speaking of chess matches, there was probably the ultimate chess match on yesterday. We were texting with one of your actual training partners, the world champion Haney, against the the Matrix, Loma.
Yeah.
What do you think, bro?
My personal opinion, Lomachenko started out of the gates, and they had a lot of little battles, but I feel like Lomachenko always finished the battle with like a clean shot. He was in, he was out.
Saw that head snap.
Correct, that little short right hook over the top. I had a few people messaging me that like,
no doubt, because I know you've trained with them.
He's the ultimate professional, but I honestly thought that Loma had nicked it, and quite convincingly as well. One judge read 116, 112.
Which is wild.
Which is like, what fight are you watching?
I feel like Loma won at least probably 6 of the first 8.
Yeah. Even in I think it was the 11th round.
He won the 11th.
The 11th round, so convincingly, nearly had him wobbled a little bit on his feet. But that's high level boxing. I was actually watching it with my partner, and she's like, "Oh, who's winning? What's going on?" And I'm like, "This is, if you know boxing, this is high level chess match. One move makes you miss, makes you pay."
Yep.
It was incredible to watch.
Yep. And that's what I sort of noticed. There was periods of that fight when Loma was throwing combos and Haney was throwing single jabs.
Yeah. And a lot of the, they'd go jab for jab for a lot of the time, and I felt like Loma was always on the other side of their combination with that last blow that would knock his head back a little bit. You just don't know what they're looking for these days. But I was speaking to a guy this morning, my coach, and he's like, when you think, everyone knows boxing is politics.
Fucking oath, it's corrupt.
It's so corrupt. But it's like, you look at Lomachenko, he's 35 years old, he's done it all, he's won 2 Olympic gold medals, he's a former 3-time world champ, 3 weight class world champion. He's 35. What's he got to offer? Because they're like, how long is he going to be around for? How long is he going to be around for? Whereas you've got Haney, he's 24 years old, he's unified, there's a lot of money to be spent here if you're riding that journey a little bit. But in saying that, who knows? I actually seen this morning. I think they're going to try and protest it, but who knows what will come from it.
Gervonta beats him.
Yeah, I think Gervonta beats him. I think he's got that real dog attitude. Yeah. You
obviously watched that with Ryan Garcia as
well. Yeah, incredible. Like, he waited perfectly. You know what's really annoying? I told all my mates, I'm like, round 7. And then when it comes, I was like, I don't usually bet on fights, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to put money on round 9. I told everyone round 7. Yep. He ended up stopping him in the 7th. I'm like,
it's always the way, though. It's always the way. And you always hear about the wins, not the losers.
I know.
Yeah, fucking hell.
But incredible, like, it's when you think of mega fights now, like, they can build some serious mega fights out of these. They've got your Shakur, you've got Devin Haney,
At least in boxing, finally, we're starting to see some of the best guys actually fight other best guys, whereas it's been such an avoidance game, especially in the heavyweight division for such a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about the pay packet for everyone. It's not really about whose O's got to go anymore. It's like, I'll fight him to get this and then get there, then I can get this shot. And that's how it all kind of works, is all that the planning behind it. But now it's like every champion is just in the division. Best should go at it. If you want to unify, you got to go at it.
100%.
100%.
So what was it like training with Devin?
It was incredible. So he obviously was in preparation for George Kambosos. He arrived in Australia pretty much that night. I'd seen a photo of it, and then I had got a message maybe that afternoon. He was looking for rounds straight away. So I got called in, did about 3 or 4 sessions with him, which was really good. And just the way he conducts himself is the ultimate professional. It is like, do you remember watching Floyd Mayweather stuff back on YouTube? It was the doghouse.
And he was in there when he was young.
Yeah, it was, he's got the whole entourage. There was, there was full security at the door. I remember some kid tried to take a photo of his phone of obviously me and Haney in the ring, and then the guy at the door chased him down, grabbed his phone, deleted it out of his album, deleted it out of his recently deleted. Like, it was proper.
Full spec.
Yeah, full spec, It was like, and they've got the full entourage. He was throwing one jab, I'd catch a jab, and they're like, "Oh, $1 jab." Like, it wasn't even hitting me, but they were pumping him up, like. Which
all probably plays into the psychology of his preparation for what's about to come.
Absolutely. They really get around him. But he had an incredible team. He had a physio, like, he had a full-time chef. I remember after the spar, we sat there, and I was like, walked over to him, thank you. He's like humble. In person, he's humble. I said to him, welcome to Melbourne. I said, have you had an opportunity to go out and explore yet? And he's like, nah, I'm here for business only. And he was, funny enough, he was staying in the western suburbs. Like, he was staying next to one of our gyms in Braybrook.
Just because he wanted to be
Just
away
because he wanted to be away from everyone. You know what I mean? If he was staying at Crown or that,
I wouldn't have expected that.
No doubt that he would have been a centre of attention walking up and down to his room. He stayed at literally like an Airbnb. It was your stock standard house in Melbourne. It was purely business for him, which paid off in the end.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. I saw him on a podcast, or a snippet from a podcast the other day, just basically saying how girls' biggest distraction.
Yeah.
And he just stays fully clear of
Yeah.
that scene as
Yeah,
well, as
100%.
best as he can, as best as any bloke can.
He had a partner last time we were here, but I don't think he was with her anymore. But you know what? I think at the highest level, any distraction, like, he's full time for him.
And that kind of sport's got to be very selfish.
You do have to be very selfish. Absolutely, you do have to. There's a fine line between. In saying that though, you need a very good support circle. Mm-hmm. But if you've got issues in that support circle, it's got to go. Yeah. Because it's in boxing and any combat sport that is. If you're half-assed, you get hurt. You know, like there's the opportunity to be hurt, and on national television, like, you don't want to be hurt on national television. You want to give it your ultimate best crack, full preparation. Although you're physically, but the body's got to follow.
Isn't that the mental torment the whole way up to the fight? Just that's your fear, getting knocked out in front of your mates, or in front of everyone, getting embarrassed and humiliated. That's the worst that could happen.
You know what? I said to her, a very good friend of mine had a very bad loss yesterday, but Andrew Maloney. But in saying
mate, that's as crisp a knockout as you see.
Yeah, in saying that though, like, you know, hats off to Andrew Maloney. He's a true champion. He's wears his heart on his sleeve, and. You know, I was talking about it to a mate. He's like, you know, I'm like, no one says anything because the people if they do say anything, they're the guys that haven't been in there before. You know what I mean? Like, it takes a lot of courage and a lot of balls to get in there at that level.
Any level, I think.
Any level, you know, get inside, whether it's an octagon on the mats, on the boxing ring, it takes courage, you know. So hats off to him, and obviously I wish him a full recovery. Yeah,
for sure. Hopefully he does bounce back like that. And I think some people just in the general population, mate, they don't understand the reality of violence, and they do not understand the reality of head trauma as well. Like, a knockout like that could take him 6 months.
Absolutely.
Like, people, it's not like the movies. You don't get pistol whipped and then just wake up and keep fucking going.
Nah, of course not. Of course not.
Have you had many bad knockouts?
No, I've obviously been very lucky. I've never actually been into a position myself. I've actually, I remember when I was fighting, my third pro fight in Brisbane, I knocked a guy out in the first round, and speaking to him after the fight, he was just repeating himself. Like, he kept repeating himself, and I was actually in the corner with a mate of mine recently who copped a very bad loss. After the fight, I've never really seen someone repeat himself that much, and it's quite scary.
Mate, like, it really is. I know, like, I look at things very differently now because I understand the science. Yeah. But when I was young and playing footy, I didn't really give a fuck. Yeah. And I went through a period where I got knocked out a little bit too often. Yeah. And the worst incident, which you just made me think of, is I was running back with the flight, full tilt, and have jumped to take the ball. Someone else coming the other direction, and their elbows hit me sort of in the jaw. Yeah, and it snapped my wisdom teeth off, but it knocked me out. So I'm knocked out, probably 3 meters in the air, and then came down, and the head's bounced off the ground. Yeah, fully unconscious, convulsing, and was like pissing this like funnel through my footy shorts. Like, I completely lost control. And then had got up after a few minutes and was just completely disorientated. This is storytelling. I don't have any memory of it. I'm like, I'm all good. I'm just going to drive home. And I was that confused. Like, I didn't even have my car there. Like, and I'm telling people I'm going to drive home. They're like, mate, can you just sit down and relax? And where I apparently then slipped unconscious again. And I woke up, probably like 12, 16 hours later in the hospital. Wow, fine. And was kind of, I just remember my eyes kind of opening and closing, and I had one of my mate there and my mum there, and I just remember my mate's face was like really concerned. Yeah. And then that was like, fuck, this is bad. I remember waking up really quite emotional, because it was just, as cliche as it is, it was the simple questions. They're like, do you know what's happened? I'm like, I know that I've been knocked out. Yeah. Bad. Yeah. But I couldn't articulate it. Absolutely. And they're like, do you know your name and that? And I'm like, I know my name, but I literally couldn't find the words. Yeah. And then
it's scary. And it's horrible.
For about a month, I was still living at home at the time, and I lived in a separate part of the house. And my old girl would come out and check on me, And she's like, oh, how you going? I'm like, what are you doing? How come you're not at work? And she's like, oh, this is the 4th time I've checked on you in 2 hours. And you asked me the same thing because I couldn't remember seeing her half an hour ago.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where the boys actually stopped teasing me because I was like fucking Dory.
Yeah.
Just forgetting everything. And it took me, I wasn't allowed to drive for 6 months and it was, mate, my short-term memory was fucked. And it still suffers a little bit, I think, today.
There's concussion specialists out there. So I actually never knew this. My cousin who races motorbikes, he did motocross his whole life, had a lot of bag crushes, a lot of head knocks and stuff like that. He's seen a chiro kind of remedial guy that like he specializes in with head knocks. And he actually sent him, he reckons he was seeing like colors and stuff in the corner of his eyes. He put like a balloon up his nose and like squeezed the balloon. It just, I don't know the scientific behind it, but he reckons it was like the colors were gone. He could remember things again.
But the thing is after that, right, is that was the bad one. But then I feel like it took me a good 6 months to get back from it. But because of that one, I feel like your body, it starts to flick the switch quicker as like a protective mechanism. So
and the tolerance gets a little bit lower.
From there, I just get clipped a little bit, lights out.
Yeah.
And I'd wake up fine from that. Be like, fuck, I've been knocked out again. Not the same thing, but the point was that the lights just kept going out. And that's where I was like, all right, I'm stopping.
There's that documentary on Netflix about the NFL player. Do you know which one I'm talking about? Hernandez?
Yeah, and did he kill someone?
Yes, but it was all.
I haven't watched it.
It really good doco, but it all refers back to.
There's the movie on it too. Yeah.
Yes, correct. It all refers back to obviously head knocks. So that's what they talk about, and it's brain functionality and how obviously long term after these head knocks, because he was never himself after being knocked out multiple times.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's pretty scary stuff when you look into it a little bit further. Like you said, as a young fella,
you don't give a fuck.
No way, you're not thinking about shit like that.
Nah, and then you start to get a little bit older, and you're like, okay, I don't want to be.
You know what? I don't want to be boxing forever.
It's a young man's sport, isn't it?
It is, and I want to get in. My goal is to. One, make my family proud, and I'd love to.
Sure, you've already done that.
And make my family proud, make some money, but also like live out the dream that I had as a childhood. I'd love to win a world title or travel around the world, but win a world title is like the ultimate goal for any boxer.
Yep.
But after, it's not a long career boxing. Are
you putting more time into your recovery now?
Absolutely, and I think we spoke about this recently.
We did on the phone a couple of weeks ago.
I've been boxing since I was 12 years old. I could get away with doing crazy sessions and, I always felt like I had to do the most. But now, I'm 28 years old now. I've got a fantastic base of experience and knowledge behind it, but I don't need to always do these hectic, stupid sessions anymore. It's not less is more, but quality has got to be great.
So your recovery is now more being like a more tailored approach to your training rather than just going balls to the wall. Absolutely. And then obviously adding in the recovery modalities as well.
Correct. And like as a young fella, you know what it's like. Sleep's not a priority. Sleep is like, I'll get to bed, sleep when you're dead kind of thing. It doesn't work like that. Now these days I'm 9:30, phone down, try and rest, 7 to 8 hours minimum. Anything less than that, I'm like, I wake up, I'm like, I haven't slept great.
The difference between my good and bad, which is completely determined by sleep, is massive.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy.
If I've had one or even one, but generally if I have a couple nights poor sleep, like my mindset is low self-esteem, lack of confidence, full of doubts, feeling lazy,
shit decisions,
can't be fucked, maybe a bit negative and grouchy versus when I'm well kept.
Mate, I totally agree.
I don't even know what day of the week it is. I don't care. I'm ready to get after it.
That's exactly right. I'm the exact same as you. So now the focus is obviously good sleep. Sleep's number one, and obviously having the gyms. I'm very lucky that I've got the full recovery systems there. So we've got the high baths, the saunas, the boots. I say to myself, non-negotiable 3 times a week. It's, don't get me wrong. It's for the body to relax, to get me more relaxed, but it's also for me. Yeah. Getting into I think you spoke about it. On a clip that you did. What did you say? Something about it. Do you remember what I messaged you? You posted something about an ice bath. I'm like, thanks, I needed that.
Yeah. It was about resilience.
Yes, correct.
That we can argue about the benefits of cold water immersion, but the number one benefit, in my opinion, is the way it develops resilience because you're doing something that you do not want to do.
You don't want to do it. And you said that something like, don't be a little bitch and do it or something like that. I can't remember what the word was, but it hit home for me. Yeah. And I'm like, I remember sharing it. I remember being at the gym the next day and I'm like, bro, I did 11 minutes, but I didn't, don't get me wrong, it wasn't it was great being in the cold water, but it was the mental resilience that I was trying to get out of it. You know, like obviously we're not recommending doing ice baths for 11 minutes because you're going to freeze, but it was more the fact that like I didn't want to do it that day.
And you've chosen not to quit.
And yes, correct. And we had a few people in the recovery, and I was like, in my head, I just kept saying, "What did Jack say? What did Jack say? What did Jack say?" And I'm like, you know what? Now that I'm here, this is easy. But it was here for me because
Getting in's the hardest bit.
Getting in is the hardest part. But these days, it's such a big thing. You know, it's incredible. One, recovery is one of the thing, but that mental resilience, it builds character.
Fucking oath it does.
There's days where I'm like, fuck, I don't want to get in that, man. Like,
it's normalizing the behavior and the habit of doing shit that is hard and that you don't want to do.
And then there's that little voice in your shoulder. It's like, you're not that sore. Why would you do it today? You know what I mean? But then I'm like, fuck, what am I doing? Get in there, you know?
Mate, testament to one of my mates. Do you know Tommy Hislop by any chance? I have a feeling he might have come into one of yours before. He's good friends with Pets and stuff because they played at Richmond together. Yeah. And we met each other the year he got delisted. So at that time in his life, he was, you know, having a bit of fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've had a good friendship for, 10 years or so. And recently I've got him into the ice bars and things, and now he's got a really good setup at home. Yeah. And it has been so fucking impressive to watch him because not only does he have his ice bath outside.
Yeah. That's already...
We're getting close to the depths of winter here. He comes down out of his bed at 5 a.m, upstairs, walking downstairs. It's raining outside. There's a lot of barriers and opportunities to quit before you've even got in there. And, mate, to his testament, since he's had it, I think he's had it for probably a month. He's been in there every single fucking morning at 5 a.m. He even sent me, he couldn't find his budgies the other morning. He's got a security camera outside and he sent it through me. He said, enjoy this. He's his big white ass at like 5 in the morning getting to this ice bath that, as we know, is going to make any man feel a little bit vulnerable being in that cold water at that time of the morning in the nude.
There's so many.
And mate, he's been doing, anywhere between 5 and 10 minutes at like 1.5, 2 degrees at 5 in the morning every morning. And I just said, mate, it's fucking awesome what you're doing. And what I'm actually enjoying out of it is I'm getting a little bit of an insight into the mind of Tom, the athlete, which obviously was attributed to him being able to become a high-level athlete and play in the AFL to begin with. But because I hadn't known him in that environment, kind of a different mindset, and he keeps getting on me because I haven't been in there since I kind of did my knee because the first time it was like I couldn't bend my knee to actually get in the fucking thing. I could do it now, but the reality is maybe I need to eat a bit of my own medicine. I'm being a bit of a pussy.
100%.
I've got to get back into the habit of it because, as we know, once you get into the habit of it, you're cool.
And you know what the thing is as well? Like the one thing that I find is like if you use it consistently, it's okay.
Yes.
But if you say, for example, you have a 2-week period where you don't use it, you're starting from scratch again.
Just like the gym.
Yeah, absolutely. And like obviously for us, we've gone through periods with work, I've gone through periods with training where I'm like, I'm just going to go home and sleep, I'm tired. And I haven't been through the recovery system for maybe 2 weeks or so. And I'm like, I get to the gym and I'm like, man, I can only do a minute. I was doing 3 minutes last week or whatever it may be, but I'm like, I can only do 30 seconds today.
Yep.
And it's just like you start from scratch and that's where that mental resilience comes in.
And what I do for me personally, because like, again, we can sit here and split hairs of like, okay, what's the protocol? What's the benefits in terms of time? How much time do I need to spend in there? What's the correlation between 2 minutes versus 3 minutes for recovery from a muscular point of view? Like, I don't really give a fuck. I know that when I get in there, I feel better for it.
When you get out, when you're the next day, during the day.
So I more come in there with like an approach. And usually I set a number or a rule where I'm going to resist the temptation to get out at least twice. Yeah. So that might be the rule. Sometimes it might be 3 times. So I'll get in there. That's your first barrier. But then it's obviously a couple of big breaths. Yeah. Calm yourself down, and then whether it be 30 seconds, 40 seconds, 60 seconds, that voice starts to creep in and go, get out.
Yeah.
Get out. You've had enough.
Your feet are sore. Get out.
And when I hear that temptation where I'm given the decision and you're as close as that.
Give yourself another minute.
You're just about to move. It goes, no, calm myself back down. Yeah. All right. Might even be 30 seconds. The next temptation comes in. And if I can go, okay, I'm going to say no to myself twice. then for me, I've done my duty.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the same. I don't really have any like specific protocols that I follow. I'm the same. Once I get in, it's usually about a 45-second period for me where
That's
it's
when the voice
like
starts to
it's
kick.
chaos. It's screaming. I can hear that guy over my shoulder screaming, "Get out! Your feet are still get out." But once I get past that 45 to a minute, it's actually not too bad.
I'm telling you, when you get in there, my neighbours must think I'm a freak. I just let out a big woo.
What's this bloke doing next door?
If you let out a big little squeal, it really just calms 100%. Things down. Just get that little adrenaline dump out.
And then you get out of there and you're like, oh, squeezing everything.
Yeah.
I'm the same. If I've been in there before on my own is probably where I feel the most obviously the most voices talking to me. Like I can be in there and I can be like, I've got emotions where it's like just staying there because it's so beneficial for you. Got someone else saying, don't do it, your feet are sore. Just jump back in the sauna. It's cool. Just jump back in the sauna a little bit. But on my own, it's like, just dig through. And then once you hit that 2-minute mark, you're all right.
I've heard at Crew you run a few weight sessions in the ice baths too.
Oh, mate. I had to go put a camera system in the recovery centre because someone was taking dumbbells into the bath. And I'm like, mate, the dumbbells stay inside the gym. The recovery centre is to relax. Keep the dumbbells inside.
This is what we're having a real good laugh about on the phone the other week. Just some of the things that have probably the eye-openers just into human psychology and behaviour that you probably didn't expect to find opening gyms.
Yeah, no, we've had some interesting times and, you know, very interesting moments happen inside the facility where it's like...
Hey, mate, people are grubby, huh?
They are, you know, and we spoke about this on the phone. I think one of the biggest things is like the cleanliness of the gym. All gyms get cleaned 3 times a week, you know, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, all the other ones, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. It is incredible what mess a human can leave behind. I say if I catch people, I'm like, well, you do this at your house? Mm-hmm. You know, like, would you, for example, like, you've got your toilet roll holder, you've got an empty toilet roll, and then someone would just chuck a fresh roll on top of it. So you got your empty roller, your full roll, and it's just sitting there. And I'm like, mate, there's a bin right there. It's more
the enormous skid marks that you occasionally get confronted with.
The toilets.
Mate, and sometimes I'll go in there and I'll see this big reverse can go down the toilet. Yeah. I'm like, I'm going to go through the cameras and just see who was last in here. And I'm not going to bring it up with them. Yeah. But if you're listening to this and you know that I do that, you know I know what you've done in there.
Yeah, even, you know, it's funny, like, a few weeks ago, I had to one of the ladies come up to me like, oh, the toilet's blocked inside the female toilets. And I'm thinking, far out, like, here we go. I'm going to have to go in, there's going to be a cobra in the toilet. Someone had flushed down their singlets and their bike shorts. And I'm like, how does that happen? Like,
the singlets and bike shorts.
Like a crop top and a bike short was jammed into the toilet. And I'm like, how does that happen?
There's bins in there?
Mate, I've got 3 bins in there. Bins, sanitary bins, everything, and someone jammed down their toilets, their bike shorts, and I'm like, way to get rid of your fucking evidence.
Yeah, that's out there.
But it's criminal. Sometimes you see some, you know, really outrageous things, but then you do get the occasional beautiful person that goes above and beyond for your facility, and
of course,
you know, some really good people as well that come through.
100%. You can't control everyone, and at the end of the day, I think we were talking about this as well on the phone, is that you can't expect people to care the way that you care.
And that's
just because it's your gym. That even goes down to staff and employees, which has taken me a long time to kind of come to peace with as well. Yeah,
and you know what? There's always a conversation we have. There's 2 hats that people wear. I think there's either the employee hat, so you rock up, you do your job, you piss off. You don't take any of your work home.
Punchy check.
That's exactly right. You've done your hours for the week. You're doing the checklist, and then there's obviously, you know, you're the boss. You wear that hat. Unfortunately, you don't really get to switch off as much as we like it. You know, you go home, you're on your phone, you're doing something late at night. That's a struggle that I probably have a little bit. Is like I'm probably at late at night. It's like I do things at stupid times. Like I'll work all day, get home, like, oh, I forgot to do this, and jump on my phone and do it. You know, it works for you, but also against you at the same time, you know, like to be, you know, one thing I want to go home and be present while I'm with my partner, and I want to make sure she gets full Jason once I'm home. But it is a struggle because it's like, sometimes you deal with things and it's like, unfortunately, I get the luxury of just saying like, it's my business, but I'll sort that out tomorrow. You know what it's
No,
like.
it falls on your shoulders.
It falls on your shoulders.
And your business doesn't stop at 5 o'clock.
No, absolutely. You know, obviously the world keeps turning, and unfortunately, like, that problem will still be there in the morning. So, but it is a constant battle between, you know, I say to people as well, like, you know, if you're representing this place, it's yours. Live like it's your house, you know. But people, they would never run your business like you will, I guess. And
it's one of those things as well. Like, I think there's a bit of a fallacy in the perception that when you're the owner or you're the boss, that everything's your way.
Yeah.
And everyone's sucking up to you. No, not at all. When you're in charge and it's your establishment, you need to be nice to absolutely everybody.
Absolutely.
It sort of goes the complete opposite way.
I'm very lucky at the moment. We have a fantastic team on board. And, you know, I actually had this conversation with someone.
How many people are in your team now?
So there's obviously
quite a big number.
Quite a big number, yeah. So all together, including all staff, we're looking at probably just under 30 people.
Yeah.
The one thing about Crew was when me and Damon opened Crew Braybrook, me and Damon were the face of the gym. You know, and
has that been a hard transition?
Yeah, because the brand has built itself now. That the brand is no longer Damon and Jason. The brand is Crew Fitness and Performance.
And that's what you needed to do.
Absolutely, because it was. And then when we opened Hoppers Crossing, it was still kind of the same, and we felt the effect a little bit. If I was at Hoppers too much or Damon was at Braybrook too much, we felt that little bit of effect. But now we're very lucky that Craigie Bird, we have Big Chris running it. He's obviously a shareholder. The brand is no longer just about me and him. We've got a fantastic team on board. So we've got a manager, we've got a head of movement, we've got a sales girl, we've got all these heaps of PTs, class coaches, physiotherapists on board. We've got a incredible team that it doesn't reflect just me and Damon anymore. It reflects everyone.
I think that's evident, and it's become evident in your socials. But when you got something like the head of movement, so because obviously you've got schedules that are operating across multiple locations.
Yeah.
Is it up to the trainer's discretion on the type of session that they're taking, or is there like a unified program that's being delivered?
So we do myself, Damon, and Tash. We do all the programming together. So Damon will do the power and the lift. I'll do the boxing and the sweat. Tash will kind of overlook everything, and we kind of sit down together. We all work together, you know. That's what makes it so special, because there's always many voices, and we have everyone's input. We kind of find what works. So Monday is lower body lift at all locations. They're all on the same program. Tuesday is strength. It's called power, strength and conditioning. Wednesday is sweat, a rumble, an Ollie Tech session. So you've got multiple sessions on Wednesday, but we kind of keep it all uniformed. We've all got the TVs in the gym, but in terms of the trainers, the one thing about Crew is we're known for, we have an incredible looking gym, aesthetically looking gym. Our sessions are all nice and hyped, but not over the top. And our coaches are well educated, you know, so that you don't just get someone that's jumping around for 45 minutes screaming at you trying to run a session. They're delivering proper content of what they should be delivering, how to push, how to pull properly, how to squat properly, whatever it may be. So there's always an education department. But we run everything together, and we filter it through our trainers as well. So guys, because we can write the most amazing programs in the world, but if your trainer is not happy running them, that won't be delivered as the most amazing program in the world. So we all uniform together. We make sure that everything runs from the top to the bottom, and make sure that they're enjoying running that. So we make sure that they're across it for the week, what the week includes, what the movements are, how to run it, what the systems may be. And then, but I feel like if the trainers aren't happy with what they're running, they're never going to run a great session.
Yeah.
So, pardon me, we make sure that everyone's across it. Everyone knows what's going on and how we want things to be ran. Yep. And then that's from top to the bottom. That's how it gets filtered through.
I think one of the cool things, or the huge advantages you guys have, obviously because of the geographical location you're in, you can obviously get very big commercial properties.
Correct.
And from someone who sort of was heavily involved in the early movement of group training facilities, like space is such an underrated feature for that style of class.
Absolutely. And from Braybrook, our first gym we opened in 2019, we do classes of like up to 30 for our sweat-based classes. For our lift-based classes, they're a little bit lower. They're more technical. There's 20 people. We need floor space. So like for Braybrook, we had we had four cells down each way. It took up there was a lot of spaces for barbells. Now we've flipped the panels. They're all wall mounts. Like at Craigieburn, different to what Braybrook used to look like. Braybrook is a little bit more open now. Craigierburn's fully open. We've got purely wall mounts. We need floor space. We need big big movements. If we're pulling good numbers, we've got everyone gets their own barbell during their sessions. You know, we need enough weight plates for everyone. Like, they're big spaces.
Yeah, they are.
You know, but they work really well. We got, you know, obviously big spaces, and we have two coaches on each session.
Yep.
So we make sure that everyone's getting that personal.
So how many people you got in a session?
It ranges. So from the more sweat-based Metcon sessions, they're up to 30 plus.
Yep.
If not saying that every class is like that, but we have the ability to have, we have the capacity to have that. In our lift-based sessions, they're like 20 and under, due to the fact that they're more heavy-loaded movements. You might have 2 or 3 coaches on the actual program. One coach will oversee everything. You got 2 coaches that will run around and make sure that everything's running efficiently. But we've also got like the beauty about us is, like I said before, everyone gets their own barbell, so you're not chopping and changing the same weights. It's categorized as, like, for example, you always get in a group fitness, you can't be too picky with, like, obviously the same what you want to get. Like, with, for example, if we've got guys that are deadlifting from 60 to 80 above, they get their bars and they get things. If you're chopping and changing bars, it becomes chaos.
It fucks the flow.
Massively. Yep. So we're very lucky. We've got heaps of barbells at each gym, heaps of weight plates. We make sure that everyone gets that tailored approach to their programming.
That's a big catch, because that'd be a limiting factor to most training facilities. For sure.
Absolutely. And you know, you go to a group class and there's minimal equipment. You're doing the same as what you do. You have time. You're all working off time. You don't have time to change the barbell. You do what they're doing. So we'd like to our point of difference is we have the space, we have the equipment, but we also have the education for people to do it properly and get their own barbell. You know, so it's personal to them, but it's tailored to a group class.
Yeah, nice. Mate, you've got infrared and traditional saunas?
Correct. We had infrared. So when we first started Braybrook, we had 2 infrared saunas.
Oh, you fucked them off, yeah?
We fucked them off, yeah.
Yep.
We spoke about this on the phone. I feel like people, from a sweat point, in a recovery, like, as if infrared, you know, they get to 60 to 65 degrees. They're hot, but they're not like...
It's different.
Yeah, it's different. In that traditional sauna, if you're cranking it to like 80, 90, you're walking out of there dripping. You know, like people
And I think if you can alternate the hot colds too, it's a lot nicer.
So we've got like cold showers in ours as well. We're very lucky. We've got a little bit of space in there as well. So you got like your big 4-man sauna. You have a cold shower before you hit the ice bath, so make sure you get all the sweat off you. Have the shower, into the bath, back into the shower, back into the sauna a little bit.
Yep.
And that works really well for us. I feel like people love sweating.
Yep.
You know, with the infrareds, you have to sit in there for an hour to get like the most official benefit.
Yeah, exactly. It takes a long time to get up to it.
30 minutes, you can do 3 or 4 rotations. You're in, you're out.
Mate, at 80 plus degrees,
yeah,
unless you're super sauna fit, like, you'd be doing well to stay there much longer.
Yeah.
Like, the average person's not going to do more than 15 minutes at 85, 90 degrees.
No way.
And those hume heaters, they get
crank.
hot, bro.
Yeah.
I've just paid for mine.
Yeah. You'll love it.
And thankfully they're holding it off until I actually need it in a few weeks to start the reno. But mate, I'm fucking pumped for it because.
Did you get the ice bath set up in here yet?
That's all happening in the next 5 weeks. So
Amazing.
What's going on is the boys downstairs, Spinal, they got their new joint opening up. So that's awesome for them. And I guess in a way, like, it's kind of
freed up some room for you.
Oh, it's definitely freed up room, but the idea of having a recovery space has always maybe been preference.
Yeah.
But at the time of when I set up the joint, cash flow or run with the amount of cash I had left to do it was there. And then obviously COVID kind of happened, and I'm not going to kick them out.
Nah,
you know, like, I've really enjoyed building that relationship with Chris and the boys. Like, they're legends, and I'm happy as for them that they're continuing to skyrocket as well. But so they move out on the 1st of July, so we start reno. So the original plan was going to be to put the recovery downstairs in the room that they do at the moment, but the ceiling's quite low. So in chatting with the boys, what the issue is going to be is they're either going to have to dig down into the concrete all the way along to that opposite wall, which would not only cost a fair bit, it's going to cause a fucking huge amount of mess and ruin all the nice polished concrete.
Absolutely.
So I don't really want to do that. And the alternative option is to obviously build up and put your plumbing underneath, but because of the ceiling height, then I can't do it to regs.
Yeah.
So then now I can't get it signed off if anything goes wrong. I'm fucked.
Yeah.
So change of plans. Nothing that's really there's a few pillars, and I'll show you when we go downstairs. But keep the things that are structural, but I'll basically remove all the glass and all the walls so it'll look like the office is floating.
Yep.
And this will become gym floor underneath.
Yeah, mad.
And then over near the bathrooms and the toilets there where there's already plumbing as well, we're just going to add on an extension. So it'll be really nice. The ice bath will sit down in the floor because it'll be built up over there. Same thing as what you're saying, a little cold hygiene shower with a screed and then the sauna looking out into it.
Well, same thing for us. When we started Crew, we never had the recovery straight away. We had the 2 infrared saws and that's all we had.
Yeah.
And then obviously as we got more cash flow to come inside because they're not cheap. You know, we had they're not cheap. We had more cash flow come in. It was more of a thing like, okay, now we're in a position to do it. But I feel like in the last 3 years, 2 years, it's really got popular.
I tell you
the
what,
ice bath has blown up rapidly.
Mate, there's a few things. If people are listening to it and you've got these skills, there are fucking huge opportunities, I reckon, in that space to start doing custom builds for people. Because if you look at, there's a company called Drip, for example.
Yes, we use them. Cold Drip.
Well, I hate to think how much that costs you.
Because it's a big bill.
Exactly. I asked them, and mate, they're like, starting price.
Yeah.
And I'm like, fucking get out of here. Like, absolutely not.
Yeah, we used, 2 of them? We didn't use it for the third, but
the point is, they're charging that because they can.
Absolutely.
Because of demand, in the popularity, the amount of people doing it. And obviously, like, the red cedar, the wood, that's what breaks you. Because that's more expensive. And then they want to make that markup on top of it as well. So if you've actually got the abilities, and that's pretty much what we're doing, is I've got a few boys that are builders. One of them actually helped with butlers down in Port Melbourne. And mate, we'll chalk it up, waterproof it. It's not the hardest thing to build them.
No, it's really not. All the builders that we've had across the facilities as well, like when we do any work, we've had one of my good mates is a builder and he's like, mate, I could knock this up for you. Yeah,
it's a bit of framing, insulation, run your powers.
It's specifics. It's, you know what I mean? Like they obviously run a tight ship, but that's all these guys do. You know what I mean? So they do an incredible job, but it is not like, I can't say because I'm not a builder, but it's not rocket science, as the builders have said, that to do this, and they're charging primo. Yeah,
exactly. It's huge. So it should work out pretty well for me, and I know in the ice bath thing, like again, that's becoming really popular. We've been talking about it today, but as a commercial product, it's still quite new. Yeah, and it sounds like a lot of the products that are on the market at the moment, they're running into a few maintenance issues. Yeah, and again, I had one company quote me 30 grand. For an ice bath, but the starting price seems to be around 10. Yeah, and then when you really look at it, like, what are you paying for? You're paying for some cold water. Yeah, exactly. Like again, it's pretty fucking outrageous. Yeah, so it'll be cool to see what happens in that space. But I've actually just met a dude, and I'll start sort of drip feeding a bit more about sort of his business as mine starts to come to shape. But he's an ex-chippy. He's a builder. And it's not what you know, it's who you know. And he's basically started his own business. He's just like provided one for someone in the US and New Zealand. Yeah. And I'm like, well, you're gonna have no problem getting me one down to Melbourne, then brother from the Sunshine Coast. Yeah. And he's got his fiberglassing abilities. He's got his own pumps and filtration systems that he's putting into them. And mate, it's going to be epic, and it's going to cost me about a quarter of the price of what the other ones do. Yeah. So.
There is a massive high demand. I think through COVID, when everyone was kind of locked inside, they were getting the ideas of doing cold baths and stuff like that. A lot of people just got them chest freezers, siliconed them, corked them.
Yeah, that's what I do at home. Yeah. And
works a treat. It's works the exact same as a normal bar.
I've got my chest freezer at home. Like, it's obviously not up to standards for a commercial service. Yeah. That's exactly it. It's silicon on the inside. I fill it up 2/3, 3/4 of the way. I turn it on for 24, 36 hours. And, mate, it hasn't been on for 10 days. And the fucker's still frozen on the outside side of the wall. Yeah. But that's because the water's perfectly still and it's got no filtration in it. You put any chlorine in yours?
Yes. So, very lucky. Damon's dad's a plumber.
Yeah.
And he is full-time on the books for us nearly. I bet. We say he is. But he's just an incredible person who comes around. He does all 3 gyms, mate. It's like after hour. He's got a full-time job as well. And after hours, he comes and just cleans them for us.
Pulling out those sports bars and fucking bike shorts out of the pool.
But you know what? You get some fucking hair in there. You get all sorts of shit,
It's the girls, isn't it?
Oh, mate.
They use so much toilet paper.
Exactly.
Fuck. Yeah. Gone to the days when we were growing up and times are tough and you got the little 2 folds and just don't push your fingers through it.
That's it. But no, it's very lucky that he helps on board because they do require obviously a little bit of effort these days because rules and regs, they need to be checked every so frequently.
Yeah, exactly. All right, beautiful. Thanks for coming on, brother.
Appreciate your time, brother. It's been a really good pleasure. I love speaking to you.
Always. Hope you enjoyed the podcast, guys. I will link Jace's business and his personal account so you can support him and follow him in his boxing career in the show description. And as always, like, subscribe, comment, all that jazz. That really goes a long way to helping me grow this podcast. And then the bigger the podcast gets, that means the better the guests get.